that a lot of folks have not wanted to even think about data standards because that's a hard thing to communicate and for folks to see the value of in the past. So I think we are seeing, for us, regulatory challenges have helped accelerate that acceptance, but I do see it growing, and it's kind of almost a prerequisite to get into any kind of a interconnected ecosystem and make that frictionless exchange of information possible. So again, not my protocols of background, but again, their inevitabilities to really make our industries sing.
Yeah, I can add something to that. So BIAN obviously is a banking framework, and then when we started doing this digital transformation, obviously we need some level of framework to follow on. So now we took that as a reference, but obviously you don't really need everything which BIAN suggests. It's a huge framework. So what we did is we looked at our capabilities to see what capabilities we would need and how would that map sometimes to BIAN, but BIAN was just a reference. We didn't really take that much, but we built our own capabilities, mapped that to our application landscape, and then how do we modernize and simplify. But they're just a good reference architecture to start with.
Other questions? No? Okay, here, I'll pass this to you. I've got some questions.
All right.
Rajesh, looking at US banking right now, what is the demand that you're seeing for APIs, and how are they being used? Where do you expect to see this to go over the next?
Hey, you saved the tough one for me.
Yeah, sorry.
So let me leverage the crowd of wisdom here, right? So I would use a personal experience here. I have a 17-year-old at home, and one of these days, rare days when I was home, she was on FaceTime with 5 other, her friends. So I said, "What's going on? Don't you have a competition coming up in Seattle? I live in Phoenix. So don't you have a competition, DECA competition coming up in Seattle?" So she says, "Yeah, we are prepping for that, Dad." I said, "Okay, what kind of prep is that? You're on, whatever, I call it video." She said, "Yeah, 5 of us, we are friends. Last time I won it. This time I want one of our friends, Alexis, to win it." I said, "Why? Why don't you want to win it?" So she changed my thinking. I'm, getting close to 50 now. So she tells me, "Dad, by not winning, I'm creating more winners." There is, she didn't use tough words like economy, frictionless economy, but that's what she meant. She said, we are keeping a group of 5 frictionless. There is enough sunshine. If I look at the sessions we had today, there is an economy of abundance we are talking about. Think about, you go to a Safeway, you go to a Walmart, you get pineapples throughout the year. It's not expensive. And if I can pick one example, it came from Costa Rica. Though it's not pineapple season here or Florida, wherever we grow in the US, right? You got it from Costa Rica. Is it really, it's like $3, $4, right? We can afford, most of us, eat pineapples. So it's that economy of abundance, right, which we created by breaking the walls, regulations, import, export. I think we are heading, the API economy is here to stay. One example that comes to my mind is AWS. If you look at the service configuration, storage configuration, key management, these are all APIs. They made the world easy by getting onto the Dev Exchange and configuring, managing. And I'm sure Software AG's API management layer has. When I think of my own industry, it's like loan origination systems. If you go to a POS, point of sale, it's hard to get all information together, right? I think Quicken Loans comes to my mind, where I and Vikram work together. I think they use you for fraud management, is that right? Yeah. So there is title, there is tax, there is escrow accounting. There is so many of those services which can come together. Right now, most times it's a printing, scanning, faxing business.
Mm-hmm.
If you have that built into your standard operating procedures, I think you're going to have your Kodak moment soon.
Okay, Vipin, regarding APIs, how would you see the design of an API that is truly market ready?
So I think this panel discussion is about open banking APIs, right? So think about it, right? So what exactly is open banking? If you see banks for years, due to the regulation, it's big, huge monolithic applications and systems. And what exactly happening is that now, because of this open API drive in in Europe and also in India, they have also opened up this open API concept. They are saying that break the banks into, not the banks in terms of the banks, but in your applications into Lego blocks. Once you break it into Lego blocks, now all you need to do is connect them. And then when you connect, the connecting tissues is an API. Again, as in the morning, as the CTO said, API is a contract between customer and then the provider. So how do we establish that connectivity through APIs and combine these systems in a way we provide that experience? So again, this is an experience layer. It's not really the application. It's not really the functionality. It's how the person who is the party who is calling the APIs, what is the experience he's getting from the APIs. So designing that's why it needs a real governance around how you design the APIs and how do you expose the APIs and what you expose. That's why there are 3 levels of APIs. I mentioned in the morning, you need the bottom one is application APIs. It's purely like programmer to programmer. And the next level is the mini, microservice and mini APIs, so where you provide the business level APIs. They actually provide the functionality. When you break them into smaller blocks, you combine them into business level. And then the next level which you expose is experience level. Whether you want an experience from a web application or a mobile application or a B2B application. So I think that's how we are actually big onto APIs, and we are redesigning the way we expose internal APIs as well as external APIs. I think that's how this open banking is going to be possible.
And that's a good point. I think that also may fuse back into buy-in to your point of selectively using capabilities that align with your organization, and that really does serve as that initial place for many services to have that business level, and you say, okay, let's rationalize this. Yeah. These 2 applications do the fundamentally same thing. Okay, which one does it better, or what's the better candidate to become the services for the APIs? That's a good point.
If you look at some of the UK banks, they have made it mandatory to come up with few APIs where you can switch your accounts bank to bank the way we switch our cell phone accounts. So it's being done there in UK, right? And they're all opening up their dev exchanges. And Singapore was also talking about this on the same lines. I'm pretty sure we are not far away when we will build similar experiences, going back to how my 17-year-old, when she becomes a consumer, when she becomes a provider, I don't think it's a matter of choice. It's going to be, it's a reality in 3-5 years.
Yeah. Any other questions at this point, just from the audience? Okay. I've got a question for the panel, and actually maybe, Linda, we could start with you. One of the slides that you put up showed 5 different models, really, of open banking. So there's a spectrum. Perhaps could you just sort of like describe the models as IT is, just broadly the spectrum as IT has put it, and then can we talk about the implications, the requirement for change, both organizationally and then architecturally?
I would love to do that. I don't have the slide in front of me, and I really, I'm not sure I can do that.
Okay, well then perhaps what we could do is consider the idea of banking as a platform, right? So the thoughts of banking as a platform, and first of all, organizational change that might be required, and you certainly touched on a lot of that. But
so yeah, I think organizationally, it's really more about the kinds of resources you have, the kinds of skills they have, the commitment, and I think you made this very clear, to a goal that says this is what we're going to do. We're going to actually utilize APIs. We're going to share information. The idea of an open API in a bank is a little scary.
Yeah.
That's a lot scary. I've spent most of my career, as I said, working with online channels, and probably 50% of that time is how do you keep it secure?
Yeah.
How do you find the happy medium between usability and security? How do you identify what kinds of entitlements you're going to provide to people? How are you going to make sure that only those people that have authority to do something do something? How do you identify that that's the right person that you're actually communicating with?
Mm-hmm.
So when you start to take all of that and you talk about the idea of an open API, I mean, I asked this question of a couple of banks when they're talking about rolling these things out, and I say, well, how do you identify that the person on the other end that's requiring or requesting this information has the authority to do that? Owns the ability to do that in terms of, you know, the account is actually theirs or their entities, and I don't get really good answers.
Actually, I can answer that.
Good,
I
good.
can answer that, right? That is separate question.
Yep, please.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, please.
So I think the platform concept, I think that is the cool, because right now the banks kind of owns customers, right? You know, even myself have an account with the same bank for like 20 years. My parents have for 50 years, right? So, and I mean, let me ask you this question: who enjoys banking experience here?
When the checks get in cash, I really.
No.
That's right. That's right.
That's employment experience.
So it's just a lot, because what happens is, as he said, we like banking, but we don't need banks. So that's a key part here. People need banking, but they don't need banks. But right now, because of these regulations, we are tied with a certain bank for so many years. And what's the problem with that is that if, for example, let's say I'm a student, I need a certain experience in banking. I want to, based on my money, I want the bank to tell me which college I can afford. If I am a newly, new dad, I want to know what kind of vacations I want to go. And then if I'm a retiree, they want me to tell me how I can spend my money. Banks have no capacity to do that, but market has. Fintechs have. They can do that. So that's why what happened is now it's turning the table, saying that, okay, you know what? Banks have no way to do this. All you can do is provide the banking, but let the fintechs provide that experience to the customers, right? So what's happening is that because of this, they're saying that, okay, now you become a platform. What do the platforms do? For example, Uber, it connects the people who needs the driving to the people who have cars. So as a bank, all you're a platform. You connect the people who need bank experience with the people who can provide the experience. And in the meantime, you manage the money. Who needs to manage money? You just do it. We don't care. If I ask my 16-year-old, hey, what is a check? He's like, check. He has no idea what a check is. I don't think any 20 years olds know what a check is. All they do use is like quick money transfer and all this. They never saw a check. So that's exactly when you become a platform. Now you're connecting. So that's why I think the regulations is forcing the people to say, okay, the banks to say, okay, you now partner with fintechs. But how do I partner with the fintechs? You have to open API. When you open an API to those fintechs, they are the ones who are actually going to provide that experience. But then the question is the security, right? So when you're opening an API, your API is essentially a contract, right? So you open an API, and then when you open API, for example, you say, hey, now it's everybody's in the business, right? All the innovators out there are in business. Now you can come and build a mobile app or anything for your customers, and then the bank is just a secondary. All it is providing APIs. So when it comes to security, how many know about OAuth here? Right. So OAuth is a security standard recently evolved, and that's the perfect fit here. So what is OAuth? Let me just give an example of what an OAuth is, right? Let's say you have a super fancy car, and you go and you want to park in a hotel, right? And you give it to the valet and say, hey, can you go park my car? What happens? He can take the car. Technically, your $100,000 car, and then he can drive for hours. You have no idea what he's doing. But what they do is they give a special key, which makes the car, when you put it in there, you can only drive less than 10 miles an hour, maximum 1 mile. So that means there's no way the valet can misuse the car. Essentially, he didn't get a full access to the car. So that's what OAuth 2 does. just some kind of like that, right? So essentially what happens is that